Hey, welcome back to another episode of Crashing Combos. In this episode, we have Johnny Martin. But before we start, some of the subjects that we talk about, what have you, they're like anecdotal. Their experience, we're sharing our experiences from our perspectives. And this is to share with you so you can grab whatever information you can from it and then do your own research, talk about it with your counselor or a medical professional. And if you're in a crisis, please dial 988 or talk with a friend or what have you. But this information is just to share our experiences, share what worked for us. Not every one person's the same, not every one trauma or experience is the same. Uh, just pull what you can from it and just know you're not alone and talk with somebody you trust or somebody that can hold space for you. But having said that, in this episode we have Johnny Martin. Met Johnny Martin through the University of Health and Performance. Um, he has been in the health space for talking, chatting with folks, counselor in high school, and please correct me if I'm wrong on any of these, and continues to help in the veteran space, helping people kind of untangle and weave some of the stuff that they have experienced, both in childhood and just life in general. So, I mean, I don't want to steal too much of your thunder, Johnny. Thank you for coming on and gracing us with your
Yeah,
presence.
yeah. So, as you said, man, we met through University of Health and Performance and the Dirt Therapy Project and Veterans Future Foundation, and that's where I do all of my full-time work. As you know, Veterans Future Foundation is a nonprofit, and our mission is simple: to empower active duty and transitioning service members in three lanes: mental health, career advancement, and continuing education. My background really is in all of those things, both in experience and education. As you said, I'm in Massachusetts. Spent the first 21 years of my career in teaching, and then subsequently earned a couple of master's degrees in counseling and psychology, and did that work with adolescents and families. At the same time, started to do that work with high performing athletes. And as you know, as our careers evolve, if we try to show up and do good work, more opportunities present themselves for us to go tackle. So throughout that time, the latter part of my career in education, I stood up my own consulting company and started working with high performing athletes, specifically in baseball and football. But since then, it has really morphed into high performers from every walk of life um, in the mental performance space. So I've worked across Major League Baseball, the NFL, combat sports, entertainment, and then 6 years ago, as you know, I found the veteran space. I am not a veteran. My father was a combat medic in the Vietnam era. My brother served, but I found your population of men and women about 6 years ago, started to volunteer in the mental health space and have never looked back. And so, as we sit here together today, my role is the national director of graduate performance at Veterans Future Foundation, where I get to have these types of conversations with men and women every day. And so, my passion and belief really is in the human experience. I don't believe that I'm the expert on anybody. People are the experts on themselves. And my role and my responsibility and my privilege um, is to use my 26 years of education and experience and to try to be a guide on the side to walk the road with folks that want to just keep growing and excelling in their own lives. And so I'm sure that that's the meat of what you and I will discuss today. And that's just a little bit about me, the father of two beautiful kids. Um, and outside of work, I like to move, stay fit and active. And if I'm not doing that, you'll find me near the ocean somewhere when the weather's decent. But I'm stoked to be here, man. Ready to dig in and chop it up with you.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, I knew your background, so I just didn't remember it all. I went and I see you like to power lift as well. Uh,
I used to do a lot more of it.
yeah.
Yes, I used to love it. I haven't been real active on social media, so some of the old stuff, that's when I was really into, squats, deadlifts, cleans. But as you know, my man, our body keeps the score, and my body has told me over the last few years that it might not be the best thing for me to keep doing. So the modalities around movement have changed for me a bit, but still love to get out and pick up a barbell and uh and push myself a bit, but not like I used to.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I definitely continue to uh try different things, do different things to kind of keep the body moving in different ways, and the mind continually challenging myself. My brain likes to I don't want to say it gets bored of stuff real easy, but I have to always keep it guessing because I will I don't want to say I don't know, I get like fatigued really easy in whatever thing I am doing. Even riding bikes, if I do it too much, it's just I don't know. I want to do the next thing. So it's just I don't get away from it. I just kind of take a break from it and I started doing something else. This is one of them. Like, this is one of my, I don't know, purpose slash passions is to kind of just, I don't know, shoot the shit with somebody and kind of just
Yeah.
really get down to um, the parallels of the human experience, right? And that's on various levels. And it's, it's by doing things, challenging things like going to UHP and like all these other things that I didn't expect to have this like grow this network of individuals that were really trying to do um, good for others and not really take anything from themselves. And I used to think that that was like a rare uh, thing that existed anymore, but it just I think it's the comfort that we find ourselves in kind of puts us in that place and we become comfortable in those circles, right? And not to knock any like family or friends or anything like that, but when you're continually just doing the same old status quo, like, and then watch football, that repetitive cycle, right? Drinking, watching football, this, or whatever the thing is, golfing, whatever. And it's
Sure.
just you're never like really like kind of breaking out of that circle to kind of challenge yourself and get to know somebody else or even challenge your own mindset or like how you're moving in the world.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I think you bring up so many great points, but uh this idea of stepping into uh certain things that may or may not be new or uncomfortable or challenging, getting away from the norm. I think you and I both agree that's where real growth comes from. And not just to share that as a cliche, but if we really think about new experiences, right? Like you starting this podcast or you taking a break from what you love so much in mountain biking, the story that you're telling yourself is not, well, I'm done with this. The story you're telling yourself is that I'm going to love this forever, but I know how I will love this forever is by dipping my toes in some other things. And that's a place that I think is really important for people to think about because it is very easy for us to get stuck doing the same thing. And even the best of things, when they become repetitive and like Groundhog Day,
Great movie.
uh, sometimes we're not challenged enough, even within those things, to say, hey, maybe I got to switch this up a little bit to provide some more stimulation or some interest in my life. So I agree with you 100%. And man, it keeps us curious, right? Trying these new things, regardless of how old we are, it keeps us curious. And we realize, man, if I can step into this with no expectations other than I want to share time and space with other human beings and talk about our experience, man, do we learn a lot about ourselves and other people by just being brave enough to try new things.
Yeah, definitely. So that kind of brings me back to like what were the some of the negative thoughts that kind of came in your head every time you stepped into a different arena, if you will, or a different discipline, whether combat sports or professional athletes, or I guess they're all professional athletes, but each time that you walked into a different space, uh, like what were some of the challenges that you faced, and then what did you learn after meeting each of those challenges?
Yeah, it's an awesome question. I think for me in every arena, whether it was adolescence and a struggling family, a young guy trying to go from the minor leagues to the major leagues, stepping into a room with 500 to 1,000 people that aren't, in my mind, my people. I think the stories are all the same for me, and that is, do I belong here? Right? We in our world, the folks we work with all the time, we hear the term imposter syndrome, right?
Mm. Yeah.
I've shared this with you offline about my experiences working with veterans, not being one, right? Working with the veteran population. So to answer your question really concisely, the limiting beliefs are always the same for me, and that is, have I earned a place in the room? What's interesting though is that the vulnerability and the courage is really about saying, I don't know if I belong in the room, but I'm going to do my very best to earn a place in the room. But even now, as we sit here today with, you know, over 25 years of experience in this space, every opportunity I get to step into this work, there's always that little shred of doubt, right? Like, am I going to earn a place in the room? I used to view that, it used to be paralyzing for me, right? It used to be, I won't do this next thing. I won't take this next gig. I won't, because who am I? What have I done? And the minute that I started stepping into that limiting belief and fighting against it and combating it and saying, no, wait a minute. If a door has opened, right? Not every door is going to be for every person, but if a door is open that aligns with what I love to do and what I've spent my entire life working on, I am at least going to walk through that door. And hey, shit, if they kick me out, they kick me out, right?
Yeah.
But I will not exist professionally or personally anymore and not walk through doors that align with what I love the most. What happens on the other side of that door, I can only control how I show up and what I do, right? But uh, yeah, I think the question you asked is such a powerful one because that's what holds most of us back. The stories, the limiting beliefs hold us back. I can't work with war fighters because I've never been to war. I can't work with professional athletes because I've never been a professional athlete. Well, instead of those stories, I am a human being, just like the other person that I'm going to be working with is a human being. We both have an origin story. We both are the totality of our experience. And we both can bring things to the table that will help each other move forward. And that shift, that repetitive shift, and telling myself that new story has allowed me to walk into rooms and work with people that I never ever thought possible. But more than just work with them, develop unbelievable, long lasting relationships. You're an example of that, right?
Mm.
Uh, we come from two completely different worlds. And as we've gotten to know each other, we realize, holy shit, we have so much more in common than we do different.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm just going to kind of say this little snippet and then I'll move on because that could detract us. But yeah, if we could do this in our society now and understand, like, connect on our similarities rather than our differences, we'd be in a way different place. But having said that, like,
So true, man.
the snowball effect of you walking through that door and overcoming those thoughts, right? And those, because I have them too, and it exists in the veteran space. At least I'll speak for myself, and I feel like that's why a lot of veterans don't go get help. I mean, one is the ego, two, it's the I didn't do enough, three, it's, I mean, there's so many factors to it. Um, but I think that's one of them is minimizing their experience and their efforts, and because they're always comparing it to others. And I've chatted with,
Mhm.
and you could probably speak to this. I've chatted with people that are on the front line that do that as well. They always feel that somebody else had it worse, or what have you. Maybe I'm overgeneralizing, but making the most of each opportunity is also important. I every time I I have the opportunity to experience something different, I'm like trying to earn that spot. I'm always trying to earn that spot and make the most of it and show up as the best version of myself to represent not only myself but also like whether TDTP or any other nonprofit I'm there to support and just kind of be all in for that experience and be present. But the first one, like the first ever TDTP trip, was like very challenging for me. So I would imagine like it was the same for you, right? And the first door that you walked through, whether that was going to school or um, working with professional athletes, the first door was probably one of the most challenging. If you could like talk to yourself then,
Yeah. Well, it's the scariest,
yeah,
right? It's the scariest because societally, um, we place certain groups of people on different pedestals, right? And then what I've learned over so many years of doing this is that if we go back to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago, dude, at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to figure this out. And
yeah,
whether a professional athlete with millions of dollars, that doesn't change what they may or may not be walking through in their life with their spouses, with their children, right? In fact, in many ways, the money, while providing them tons of financial freedom, comes at a whole nother cost. Um, and I think one of the things I've learned more than anything about human behavior, and I learned this the most profoundly in working with the veteran population over the last 6 years, because, for the most part, and again, we're generalizing here, we're generalizing, but for the most part, your group of men and women is a selfless group of men and women. Uh, but it is also a very competitively driven culture within the military. And you talked before about those that served in certain environments versus those that didn't. One of the things I think we miss in all of that, that I've seen my folks miss in all of that, is they minimize their experience externally. So follow me for a minute, right? They minimize their experience externally because uh, they're in a room full of people maybe that have done different things than they've done, right? So they minimize their experience externally. However, what they're struggling with internally, which is the only place it matters if we're actually going to make changes in our life, the pain that they're carrying for whatever reason, maybe from childhood, maybe from upbringing, maybe from a military experience, maybe in transition and issues with identity or mental health struggles. You and I know, I mean, every person is different. We could go on and on, but there's this struggle constantly with individuals where I'm going to minimize how I'm feeling externally because I don't want to be judged by the group. But internally, man, am I really facing some hardships? And so there's this constant battle between the face that we put out for the world to see, the conversations that we have for others to hear, against, man, I'm really struggling. And I'm afraid to talk about these struggles because I didn't do what other people did for the purposes of this example. I didn't do what other people did in the military. My approach now is completely different. I strip all of that away and I want to get to know the human being.
mm,
And I want the human being to have a chance to get to know me so that we can establish a relationship that is built on the human experience and built on trust. Because if I try to do it any other way, I will never be able to create a relationship with those other human beings, right? I've never been in a gunfight. I've never experienced a kinetic environment like war. Okay, so how can I connect with the human? Well, we've all experienced trauma in one way or another. And the cause of that trauma, while it may be different for all of us, the way it makes us feel is very similar physiologically and neurologically, right? And so I try to keep it really simple and really the rooted in the belief that I have a responsibility to connect with the human being. The experiences are part of that human being's journey, but they are not all of that human being's journey. And I know I said a lot there, but really to strip it all away, we minimize our experience externally, and it helps it keeps us struggling internally because we're afraid to share our truth. And once we can really, really practice sharing our truth, we can really start to work through some of the stuff that bothers us the most and is affecting us the most.
Yeah, and by no means like don't feel rushed to say any one thing. We got time. That's why I have
Yeah.
it up to 3 hours because I think this it's in the nuance of the conversation
So
and
true, man.
the
Well said.
emotion that we're just here we're here talking. It's crashing conversation really. But yeah, it's and that's kind of the one of the focuses that I have or the focus that I have for this podcast this year. And it's kind of always been that way, but it was kind of more specific to veterans and first responders at first and then mountain biking. But this year, because I was asked the question like when I did a long hike in Scotland, was like, what would I do to cure suicide? Essentially, with like if I had unlimited money. Um, and that question stayed lingering. But at the very basis of it all, as you highlighted, um, and I love the way you kind of put all that together and then put a little bow on it at the end. It is a human experience. It is the way we react to uh, situations or trauma. Some of us seemingly are unaffected. They could grow up in the same household, be twins, same values, same upbringing, same parents, and they react to it completely different.
That's right. I
It's
mean, where you see it, where you see it most, I think you and I have talked about this too. Where you see it most is with grief, right?
mm,
Let's just take loss of a loved one.
yeah.
Um, as we've talked about, both of my parents are dead. I have one brother. We were both raised exactly the same way. Same home, same indoctrination of values, same levels of discipline and accountability. Um, Obviously, same parents. The way that my brother and I grieve is completely different, right? And so, to your point, brother, um, it's what makes challenges that you and I talk about so often, challenges around mental health, around suicide ideation, around uh, God, the dream of eliminating suicide, right? It's what makes those challenges so difficult to overcome because everybody's experience is unique to them. And so the way they process those experiences is also unique to them.
Hmm.
And so for me, it's like, where do I start with men and women? I start with this belief that as human beings, regardless of what you've done or not done in your life, human beings really are innately born with three really, really powerful needs. They want to belong to something, they want to believe in something, and they want to strive for something, right? Belonging, belief, and striving. With that installation, that constant installation of hope, are we less likely to feel alone? Are we less likely to feel hopeless? less likely to feel helpless, more likely to reach out? I believe the answer is yes, right? That's why community is so important.
Mm.
Um, but man, you're 100% right. Like all of us navigate this journey differently.
Yeah. And well, I mean, well said. And I think that's what we're doing here and what I do like off on the side is try to find like this is like a neutral point, right? Like this is like a neutral place to kind of throw our ideas and just kind of leave them out there in the ether so people can pick up and be like, oh shit, I didn't see it that way, or
That's right.
man, I didn't, how did I not see that, or whatever the case may be. And it's just to share that information, share these experiences, and understand like that we all, I mean, everyone. Okay, let me say this. So to each, I know everyone is kind of suffering on a spectrum, right? Some are like bedridden, some are like functioning, high functioning, and just you know using whatever to cope with their situation, and vice versa, right? And some the spectrum is out there, and
Of course.
how
Yeah.
people are suffering. So, and depending what place you're in, if you have the wherewithal or at least a little bit of fight. I was like, when somebody asked me, like, what would you tell yourself when you were in that place? When you were, I was at a point, man, where I was stuck in bed. I didn't give a shit. Like, I didn't care, like, about anything. It sucks to say, but at the same time, it's like, I think it's important for me to say, like, how bad it was for me, like, how bad I was suffering mentally. Um, and there could be a number of things that I was doing at that time that exacerbated the symptoms, right? But having said that, I wasn't, I didn't care enough to try to pull myself out of it. So I'm speaking to, but eventually I hit a point where, you know, I was shown what I was pretty much, after my attempt, I talked to my therapist a couple days later, and I kind of just said it like nonchalantly, right, to her. And she was convincing me that it was an attempt, and I was just kind of minimizing it, right? Like, no, it wasn't. Like, I could have done something else or whatever, and I was just kind of ready to press forward. But that was the kind of like start. It took somebody else externally to me to show me what the action that I did, and I didn't care enough about my life at that time at all, because I didn't want to be a burden to anybody else. I was trying to save other people from me, and there
Mm.
was all these lies I was telling myself. Or now I understand, like something like I feel it was also like spiritual, right? Like keeping me down on various levels, where I didn't care to live. I didn't care what anything at all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it it's not fun to talk about, but I think it's important to understand. But as I kind of started to identify something to do it for, like, because it was like at this place where I just kind of like taxed out my circle, right? At least my family circle. And I didn't want to, I started to do it for them. So I tell people, like, find something to do it for, whatever it is. I don't care what it is, a fucking goldfish, whatever is it. But understand, like, whatever that is temporary, because especially if it's a human or an animal, because this life, like, one, if it's a human, you can't always depend on that person to be there for you. They can be there for you every time that you call for them, but that one time, like, you can't put that on them. It's not fair,
Yeah,
and it's not
it's not fair, and it doesn't work, man. It doesn't work because change ultimately is an inside job, right?
that's where I was
And
going with it.
yeah, I mean, so many men and women that I've spoken to throughout my career that have been sort of in that valley that you're describing right now, right? Um, it's phenomenal to have and really important to have folks in your corner. When you talk about that level of despair, though, and hopelessness, the first step, whatever that step is for the individual, has to be done by the individual, right? And
Yeah.
you said so much in there. One of the things that I think is really important when we get into those places, those dark places, we're very likely, as you said, man, to repeat the patterns that we repeated the day before, and that without getting into the clinical diagnosis of depression, but if we were just to speak about being in that depressive state from layman's terms, right? This idea that, man, I just want to keep the light shut off. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to interact with the world. I don't want the world to interact with me. And I'm in that place where I truly feel like I'd be better off if I was gone. And oftentimes we go to those places of, I don't want to be a burden on anyone else, which is what you shared so honestly, right? Well, the impact that temporary feeling, the impact that permanent decision will have on that temporary feeling, the burden that everyone else in our life that loves us will have to carry for the rest of their life is immeasurable.
Yeah.
And there was probably something in there for you, right? If we're just being raw and real, man, there was probably something in there for you during those times, whether it was right at the surface for you or whether it was your God telling you, no, brother, no, hang on for another day, because the damage that this will do to the people that love you for the rest of your life is immeasurable, right? And over time, you found ways to put yourself in different environments where, if we're being honest, all of us have those days where it's like, man, fuck it, right?
Mm.
Um, but there were probably a lot of different factors that influenced you and I sitting here today being open to have this conversation about your journey. Um, you really made me think about those environments that we are in, right? If I could, with you and anybody that might or will listen to this, think about a time in your life and think about two different environments that you've been in. You can pick any two very different environments, but in one of those environments, you felt judged, analyzed, criticized, blamed. You felt like you did not belong, right? You got that place?
Mhm.
Now, think about another environment that you've been in where you didn't feel any of those things. You did not feel judged. You did not feel analyzed. You did not feel criticized. You did not feel blamed. You felt welcome. You felt safe. You felt appropriately challenged. You felt loved, real love, not this toxic bullshit that everything you do is okay no matter what. I mean, real love. We're going to challenge you on the shit that we see you doing that we don't like. And we're going to wrap our arms around you when we see you moving forward in the direction of your health and your goals, right? Of those two environments, which one do you think human beings or you, in the purpose of this example, which one of those two environments do you think you're going to thrive in?
The one where you're just like loved and held
Of
accountable.
course, of course. But when we get stuck in those other environments, we feel like there's no way out. We feel like that's what we've earned. So the people in this other group, this other environment, well, they don't want me anyways. So if we take it all the way back to how we started this conversation, it's the courage, it's the vulnerability, it's the belief in self that no, I can step into those environments, right? And it's going to feel really uncomfortable. It's going to feel really foreign until it doesn't. And then we become starving to be in those environments because we know what the other ones feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure anybody listening could easily relate to a place where they weren't comfortable and a place where they were comfortable. And if
Yeah,
you
and
had,
we got to be careful with the term, as you know, just comfortable, because we
right.
know that real growth comes from being uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
there's a difference between being in that uncomfortable place where you feel like you're being shit on all the time and you're also shitting on yourself, and being in that uncomfortable place physically, mentally, emotionally, but everyone and everything around you is supporting you through that pain and that struggle, right? Those are two very, very different environments. And your folks in the military know it better than anyone, right?
Yeah.
I can do hard things, and what comes on the other side of those hard things, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The other environment is I feel like no matter what I do, it's all hard. It all feels like shit. And I've got no love, no support, no challenge, no community. All I have is judgment, analysis, criticism, blame. And so, what do we start to tell ourselves? We start to tell ourselves, well, I'm a piece of shit. This is exactly where I belong. It is absolutely not where anybody belongs, but many of us choose to stay there.
Mm. It's amazing what we get used to.
Bro,
Like
isn't it?
yeah, we are so malleable and adaptable that if you're not careful, you will end up in deep in quicksand.
Yeah. But here's the thing, bro. If we choose to be there, what is also true?
That we choose to that we accept that.
And also, if we choose to be there, it means we can choose to be somewhere
Oh,
else.
I'm tracking. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And and not to make it about me, but I think it's relevant. Like like when I made the decision, was given the decision to choose to figure out what was going on with me. Uh like that was a lot of uncomfortable spaces I was in. Um and especially like I mean, that's like ego death on without any psychedelics or nothing.
Huh.
It's yeah, it was because at the time I was a master sergeant, right? I mean, not
Yeah,
to say that I do my rank around, but I had to accept the fact that the person that should know everything that's going on and should have their shit together did not have their shit together.
huh,
Um, and I had to begin that journey that I mean, thankfully, going back to something you alluded to earlier, I had the support of my leadership to see me through and give me the space and the things to allow me to heal. The system was completely different, but
sure.
the the leadership I had at the time was with me every step of the way, um, and that helped. That was huge because if I didn't have that support, then I would have just it would have just reinforced what I already thought of myself
That's
at that
right.
time.
That's right.
So
And
support is everything.
it's everything. And if you only rested in those first few experiences you had with leaders that just did not have their shit together, or others that did not have their shit together, if you only relied on that guidance and that counsel and didn't continue to be the best advocate for yourself to find other leaders, right? In your case, in the story you're sharing, those that you served with, it's very easy to see why people stay stuck,
Mhm.
right? Because one encounter after another only reinforces this thought that nobody gives a shit. Nobody's here to help, right? And what you learned is that, well, maybe the first few people that I encounter aren't, but man, there are some out there that are.
Mm,
And I've just got to keep climbing out of that valley until I can find the right people that are willing to jump in with me and climb out together.
right. Throw the rope down,
Yeah. Yeah. And
or ladder.
yeah, that's right. So again, like it really speaks to man, everything that we do in life is a choice, right? Everything. But as you know, as others know that have struggled with these really significant and real mental health struggles, it's really easy on a podcast to say everything is a choice.
Yeah.
But man, is it so hard to access those choices when you feel like everything that you're going through in your life is stacked against you. And so where do we start, right? That's why when you and I talk or you hear me speak to your brothers and sisters in our community, it's you've got to start so small. You've got to start so small and rack up little wins. And you've got to keep doing that while you're still feeling like shit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes this journey so challenging. That's why I love what you do, man, because the more that people can hear, man, I'm not alone in these thoughts or feelings. So many others have them as well. The more you can put this out there for people to latch onto, the more that those listening will realize, no, no, I'm not crazy. I'm not broken. I'm in the valley right now. There's a way out. There are lots of ways out.
Mm. That's important right there. There are lots of ways out. There's not one way out. There are many ways out. If you can see that light, the little flicker, and chase that until you can see the brighter one and then brighter one. And yeah, it's, I'm glad you brought that up because it is easier to say it on a podcast. And that's why I talk about the place I was in. And I don't know what this world has, or not this world, but what your purpose is in life. But I think what you're going through is preparing you for that if you can work through it and overcome and grow, and then use your story eventually in a place where you could help others, um, share your journey. Because I don't feel like this life we're supposed to go through it on our own. You
Oh,
talked about
can't.
community
We
socially.
can't.
Yeah, but this is just um, a roadmap that I'm sharing, and I had no, I couldn't fathom, like, when I was going through whatever, that I'd be riding mountain bikes, have a fucking podcast. Um, any of the things that I've done in the last 7 years and the people I've met, like, I would, if somebody would have told me then that you'd be doing all these things, I wouldn't believe them. And
Of
so my
course
point
not.
is, I don't know what's on the other side of it.
Of course not.
And
Because you were in a place where you didn't even give a shit whether or not you saw it tomorrow.
no, I didn't. I
And so
didn't.
if you just if you were to eliminate all of the things, right? Let's eliminate all of the things, the beautiful family, the passion for mountain biking, your fitness, your podcast, your faith, right? All of the things. If you eliminate all of those, but still we're sitting here right now and you and I were shooting the shit off air, and you said, man, I have more peace in my life today than I ever imagined possible. What a gift that is in and of itself, right?
Yeah. Yes.
One of the things that we run into, you know this, man, we one of the things that people run into is when they're in that place, and we've all struggled, we've all been in those dark places, right?
Yeah.
We paint this picture about what we think it should look like. Well, 7 years later, you are still working on that piece of art. You're still working on that picture that is your life. But throughout that 7 years, man, it was just inching just a little bit closer to finding peace.
Sometimes I go backwards.
We all go backwards, man. And I think that's so important for people to hear. Like
Yeah.
we we
Yeah.
all go backwards.
Yeah.
Here's the difference though. When we make a choice every day to keep moving forward, that backwards is not as catastrophic. That backwards is nowhere near as painful as it used to be, right? That backwards is not, holy shit, I've got to start all over again. That backwards is different because of how much progress we've made in your case, over the last 7 years.
Yeah, and then as that process is happening, you're whether you realize it or not, you're building resilience. You're building up that armor, if you will, right, on many different levels. And if you're attacking it as such, I try to think of like a video game. Like, in a video game, we can build like skills, but you got to do these task requests or whatever to continually build those skills. So if I'm weak in, I don't know, like meditation or what have you, then I'm gonna practice it. If I'm weak in reading, then I didn't realize that reading was a skill. I just thought it was like not that bright.
Yeah, you either can or you can't, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought, man. But I figured out either way. But build it like a skill, like, and it's like you highlighted earlier. It's like I used to have a team chief that would say, how do you? He would always say this: how do you eat an elephant? And we were like one bite at a time, like. But he would always say it, right? But it's the same thing. Like, it's not attacking or not. It's not addressing everything all at once. It's
Can't.
addressing like the bite size, the small wins, as you said, to stack those small wins. And then sometimes, like you say, you go backwards because the thing that you find you're loving to like love to do might be taken away for a bit. That happened with me in mountain biking. I broke my hand, and then but that was something that taught me not to be one dimensional.
That's right.
Because if I can't ride anymore because whatever is ailing me, it's just not my, especially the way I ride. Um, then what am I? Like, so it's like, all right,
Well, you just brought up something, brother, that's so
yeah,
so
go
important.
ahead.
You just brought up something that's so important for our growth, right? Sometimes we think in absolutes and in isolation, right? If this is true, using your example, I absolutely, excuse me, using your example, I absolutely love mountain biking. I just broke my hand. Okay. This is all about resilience and mindset, right? Resilience being a key component within mindset and mental performance. I broke my hand. I can't mountain bike anymore. That is true. What else is true? That's where so many of us get stuck, right? Here's an example that you know of from my own life over the last 2 months, right? Within the last 2 months, September and October, my mother died suddenly. I had an emergency surgery. My brother had a heart attack 3 days after we buried my mother. So within 8 weeks, I
Damn.
lost my mother. I had an emergency surgery that was beyond my control. Felt great in 1 hour. 6 hours later, I was in the hospital getting cut open. And 3 days after we buried my mother, my brother had a heart attack. All within 8 weeks. That is all allowed to suck for me, right? So when we talk about moving backwards, all of that is, even one of those things is reason enough to not be in a great place,
Yeah.
because all of those things are true, meaning I'm physically compromised, I'm emotionally compromised, I'm mentally compromised, I'm spiritually compromised. All of those things are true. One of the things that has helped me drive through all of this is this constant reminder of, yes, this is all true. What else is true? Well, what else is true is I've got a beautiful family. My children are healthy. I am alive and well and able to keep doing work that I love. I'm also really sad and allowed to cry and be emotional over my mother's passing and how quickly it happened. We can't paint our situation with the same brush. If we do that, everything else that happens around us is always filtered through the negative lens, meaning I don't give a shit about any of that stuff right now because I just buried my mother. I feel like shit physically, and I'm worried about my brother. So no matter what happens around me, If I paint everything with that brush, that poor me brush, then everything that happens is going to be filtered through that lens. Instead of, yes, I'm allowed to be sad. Yes, I'm allowed to be recovering. Yes, I'm allowed to be worried. But what else is true? What else is true is that God gave me another day.
Mm.
I get to use that day in any way that I want. And if I paint it with the brush of everything sucks, I can promise you how that day is going to go. But if I paint it with the brush of what else is true, well, maybe I can do those little things today that move me a little bit closer to peace. Maybe I can have this conversation with you openly and honestly. Maybe I can call you offline and go, hey, dude, I need you to pray with me right now.
Mm.
That's what I need. Maybe I can call a friend. Maybe I can sit with my son and put my arm around him and just tell him, hey, I love you, man. I'm hurting. I don't feel great, but I love you. And that's enough for today. Right. And so I could go on forever, but I think one of the things that's super important when we're struggling, we have to ask ourselves, what else is true? And then act on that truth, act on what else is true. You broke your hand. What has it allowed you to explore? So many things you never even thought about before you broke your hand.
Yeah.
That's how we build that resilience, bro. We build that resilience by stepping into shit that does not feel good at first. That is resilience. How do we define it, right?
Mm.
How do we define resilience? Essentially, it's time under tension. It's doing the things at first that don't feel great, that are really painful, that we're likely to fail at until we don't.
Yeah, man, you said it. I mean, yeah, and I see it also as what is this trying to teach me?
Hmm,
Like
hmm.
like there's something here. That's what I started to learn is like each negative thing that happens is trying to teach you something. So it's like, and that's also a skill because all the things you just highlighted is where I used to go, right? Because that's what I learned. It was a learned behavior based off of
Of
some
course it is.
family members. So anytime anything went to shit, it was just like, and what's strange about it is like, I let me just say this and I'll add on, go move forward. But like the learned behaviors or an adopted ideas was, I remember when somebody would die, like if you didn't act sad, then you were not being respectful or what have you. So you learn to kind of like, oh, so I didn't even know him, like I'm a little kid, whatever. But I learned that, and maybe that was a perceived idea, but like fast forward, uh, like overriding that, and then on top of that, starting to overwrite that habit or that idea or that adopted idea with this is an opportunity. What can I learn in this? And what I learned from me breaking my hand, because I started to use mountain biking in the same way I started to use alcohol. Where I started, and a lot of people in the mountain biking space they do that, right? It's their therapy, right? Their therapy, not dirt therapy. Um, and I tell some people like, hey, like just be aware that if that's taken away from you, then what are you? Like, so I saw that as an opportunity. It's like, all right, well, I can't, I got angry that I was allowing something to identify me again. And I started to, like, I need to go. I took that as that's what the lesson I learned from it was, what could I learn from here? I need to start doing the other things that I love. So drawing, I play the ukulele. I'm not great, but I play the ukulele. Like, and I use that for rehab, right? Functional rehab. That's what I called it. I mean, it's probably a thing, but like to
It's
start
not,
using
who cares?
dexterity, right?
If it works for you, who cares?
Yeah. And so it was all these things that I started to. So each any other time that something happened, I started to shift into, uh, like what could I learn here? And then you had said something earlier, and then after I say this, and like I'm curious to see how faith has kind of carried you along. But when you said when I was in that dark place and I didn't consider what it would do to others. That's how shitty of a place I was in. If I could use the word selfish or like the place I was in, I didn't think of it because I thought it was everyone would be better off, like because of that's what I was telling myself.
Sure.
It's dumb looking back, but what I learned from that was, man, I lost my train of thought on that.
You were speaking about when you were in those dark places, you first started talking about identity, and you were nervous that only attaching your identity to mountain biking would be similar to your approach to alcohol, right? And so you, being careful about throwing all your eggs into one basket.
Yeah,
Um, and then that was when you were really in that valley, in that low place, you weren't even considering how others were feeling.
yeah. I mean, it was. I wasn't even considering how others are feeling, and I didn't learn. But I think I'll go back to it if I can remember.
It'll come back, man.
Yeah, yeah, it'll come back. That's part of the gray hair. Things start happening.
Bro, we can't possibly remember everything.
Yeah, it was gonna all tie into it. But yeah, that's what it taught me. It was an opportunity. So any anytime that something happens now, I mean, it's kind of like Jocko, right? When he's like, "Good," right? Uh,
Or
but
so what?
yeah, or so what,
So what?
and that's a skill too. Like it's a skill to overwrite those thoughts and those adopted ideas and the things that the first 7 years of your life has taught you, right? Those things, those core beliefs. But it is possible, and it is difficult, and you're gonna have to do it for the rest of your life. Like and that's the thing too. It doesn't matter what you learn, what like whether it's epiphany you had or near death experience is kind of shifted, you're by human nature, you're gonna default to the things that you learn in those first 7 years, right? And it's like having to catch those and then like, nope, I can't do that. I gotta do this. I gotta have to look at um I don't want to say the silver lining, but choose to be like, how am I gonna what paintbrush am I gonna use for this because as you like it's like the lens you put on is what you're going to see the world in as
Of
you
course.
stated earlier.
Of course. And just using your example of what paintbrush am I going to use? I mean, to me, doesn't that really speak to the importance of constantly learning new skills and having new resources in the toolbox, right? If we keep doing the same thing, we should not expect a different result. But we can only use what we know how to use. And the only way to learn how to use new tools is to practice those new tools, right? And so your example is a great one. And this isn't specific just to the veteran population. This is about human performance and growth in general. You've heard me say this. I say to our guys and gals all the time, you're painting the house with a fucking screwdriver. Like,
Yeah,
why? And oftentimes it's, I don't know what else to do.
yeah,
Okay, but that's a good thing, right? The acknowledgement and the admission that I don't know what else to do means there are other resources and skills that we can learn. The purpose of you and I talking, not just on this podcast, but catching up as often as we do, I need to constantly put more tools into the toolbox, constantly, because life is constantly changing. And using the same thing that I used 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, may not work with the same level of effectiveness that I need today. And so, a huge part of this journey for us, right, is how can I learn something new every day that might be able to help me and those that I'm blessed to serve every day. Some of it works, some of it doesn't work. But I've gotten to a place in my life where if it doesn't work, I don't say I'm a piece of shit, I'm a failure because this didn't work. All I say is this didn't work for this particular job. What else can I try? That's the resilience. That's the why resilience and grit is so important. What we use first may not work, but where do most people go? Especially if they're in that low place, what do we say? Well, I tried.
Yeah.
Because that's all they have the energy for is, well, I tried. Well, yeah, but you tried the same thing that you've been trying. Let's try something else.
Yeah.
Let's try something else. Let's walk through that other door and see what's on the other side.
Yes. Troubleshooting. Like troubleshooting like the problem, right? And it's it's easier and it's more accepted, right? Where especially if you're going back to support, right? If you have the wrong one mindset, two circle, right? And usually your circle dictates your mindset.
Absolutely.
If they're like, well, man, that's fucking life. Deal with it. It's like, how does that help me? But if you start to accept that and just accept it, like, yeah, you're right, man. Like, and do this thing, right, to make you feel better, whatever that is, video games or whatever. And then you're just gonna compound your problems, and then you're just gonna
But
be worse
what if
person
we
to
took,
this.
yeah, but what if we took that same story, brother? Let's walk that dog for a minute. What if we took that same story that this is life? What are you going to do about it? You mentioned Jocko before. This is life. Good. Or so what? That when I hear that, so what? That's not a dismissal. That's not a negative. When I hear that, so what? That's an invitation,
Mm.
right? A lot of people when they listen to people like Jocko or other folks that are, it's difficult to relate to their mindset because of their level of intelligence, who they are, what they've done. When a lot of people listen to guys like Jocko or others, they don't view themselves in the same circle. Like, right? I'm not him. I don't view it that way at all. When he shares something like that, he's not saying being like me. When he says something like, so what? It's an invitation. It's an invitation. Yes, life can be tough. Yes, this situation sucks. Yes, this is brutally difficult. So what is an invitation? What are you going to do about it?
It's also an opportunity to adopt and update your mindset.
Of course, every invitation is an opportunity,
Mm.
right? Every invitation is an opportunity. But most people, when they hear somebody like him who has done more than most, especially in the eyes of the public,
Hmm.
right? When people hear, sometimes it can be dangerous when people hear "so what," they're like, "Oh man, that's a kick in the nuts." I don't view it that way. I don't view it like we've been raised. You so what, or life's tough, or good, or suck it up. All of those things are invitations.
Mm.
As you just said, invitations are opportunities for growth. But when we receive the message, you shared a great example. When we receive the message and we're in a tough place, when we receive the message, hey man, this is just life. Fucking dig in, deal with it. For most people, it takes us further back into that place instead of, man, this is life. We got to find a way to deal with it. For people that are working through a growth mindset and resilience, it's an invitation. What are you going to do about it? Because we have no control over the circumstances around us, but we have 100% control over how we respond to them. What are you going to do about it? right?
Yeah.
There's no bringing my mother back. There's no changing what happened to me physically. There's no eliminating my brother's heart episode. There's no eliminating that. That is what life threw our way. And I don't say my way, I say our way, our family's way. That is what life threw our way within a 5 week time frame. So what?
I think it's so going back to Jocko, and that's a lot within 5 weeks for a lot of people or anyone.
It's a lot. Yeah, it is.
But in those situations, I hear this often, especially in the military, keep your world small, control. And then I heard this uh my last podcast. He's a soft guy, Green Beret, and he was just like, control your controllables. Like whatever you can control, just focus on that. Like don't worry about things that are out of your control, which is easier said than done, but control your controllables is a very succinct way to give you control back over your situation. It's like, all right, well, this sucks. One thing at a time. Like, what can we do in this moment? And by keeping your world small and just focusing on controlling your controllables, you're able to navigate your way out of it. And it's like until you put something on paper, everything it seems like overwhelming, right? Until you write it down and like, oh, it ain't that bad. I just got to do this, this, and this. It's like looking around that wall, right? When you're so close to it. Um,
Yeah, we have to action something, right? We
yeah,
have to action something or nothing is going to change.
yeah. It's giving you something to focus on because if you're kind of just standing back and just not doing anything, it's just going to seemingly get worse because our mind, yeah, that's what it does. It catastrophize. Man, saying this word,
Yeah, it
catast,
catastrophizes. It sure does.
catastrophize.
The brain's job is to protect the vessel, man.
Yeah,
And so it's going to constantly conjure up worst case scenarios. So we avoid those because that neurologically keeps us safe, right?
yeah,
And the example you're sharing is when you said, I loved it when you said, keep your world small, control the controllables. Everything that we do, right? Every choice we make, brother, is an investment of our time, our attention, and our energy, period. Good, bad, or indifferent, every choice we make is an exhaustion of time, attention, and energy, right? You and I today, we are giving up by choice. We are giving up a part of our life to spend time together, right? We are making that choice freely. We're making it with love in our hearts because we want to do it, but we are choosing to our time, attention, and energy on each other. If we recognize that everything we do, every choice we make is an investment of that time, attention, and energy, would we be more likely to invest it in ways that are going to move us forward? Or do we want to remain exhausted by doing the same thing and expecting a different result? Now, we are simplifying far more complex issues when it involves mental health, neurological constraints, specific diagnoses, right? These are all real things. But what we know about human beings, because we've seen it not just in our own lives, but in countless examples around us, is the diagnosis does not prevent peace, joy, growth. The diagnosis makes it more challenging to experience peace, joy, and growth. And so, by investing our time, attention, and energy on something, we've got to change the story because if we know the brain's job is to keep us safe, we are more likely to continue. If we're in a tough place, we're more likely to invest that time, attention, and energy on the things we've always done, and then we stay stuck. But if we remind ourselves that, wait a minute, every choice I make, either way, is an investment of that time, attention, and energy, maybe I just want to choose a little something different today and see how it goes.
yeah, definitely, um, definitely, because and I keep hearing the same word again, and it's like this support and the circle you have. is important. Because not everyone has that support, and if somebody's trying to grow out of the ways that they've done stuff, and they have someone working against them with a negativity mindset, whether in family or friends, then at some point, and I'm not encouraging, but I had to personally take breaks from, or take certain people in doses, if you will, to
Of course.
like to shift out of it. And it's nothing on, it's just like I need, it's basic troubleshooting, right? I need to strip away what I what my inputs are and focus on, that's why I put alcohol to the side, right? Like, all right, this is not uh I don't know if I'm addicted to this thing, but I need to put it to the side and figure out what's going on here. An inpatient, they are like, hey, we don't think you have a problem, but we think we suggest you go to um, AA. So I was like, well, fuck, I'm in here, might as well go and try to learn
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And it was, and I was always on step one. I never went past step one. But I really try to put myself, and that's what I'm hoping that people do with the folks I bring on, the experiences we share, the things we share, is you try to put yourself in our experiences, not necessarily word for word, but apply it to where it applies, and then like figure your carve out your own path for
Yeah.
yourself.
Well, you're speaking right now about the scale of empathy, right? Feeling with someone, not for someone, but feeling with someone. How can I put myself in that person's shoes? How can I feel with them? Um, it's critically important for, and the other thing that you talked about that I think is so important is, you shared that you had to, it sounds like you had to make some really conscious, tough choices about who you were going to be around and how much, right?
Yeah. Uh,
In order to gain something, anything in our life, in order to gain something new and better, we typically have to give something up. Because one of the things that is the same, one of the very few things that is the same for every human being on the planet is time, right? It is what it is. We can't create more of it. And so we have to be very aware of who we are choosing to spend our time with and why. Because people, places, and things typically either add value to our life or they rob us of the value that we are trying to instill in our life. And I know that sounds cold, but the concept of loving somebody from a distance is really important when we are trying to craft something that is different in our life. It's not about judgment. It's not about analysis. It's not about us being better than or worse than that other person or people or thing, right? It's not about any of that. It's just about asking ourselves and being really honest with ourselves around, are the people, places, and things that I am spending the most time with, are they bringing me closer to where I want to be? Or are they taking me further away?
hmm.
And we also have to remember that other people in our lives could very be making the same decisions about us as individuals.
Yeah.
And we have to be okay with that. And it's hard because we develop relationships and we think that the relationships that were so strong a year ago, 5 years ago, 25 years ago, well, there's history there, there's loyalty there. We have to keep it. We have to keep it the
Mhm.
same. Right. And if we don't, we're pieces of shit. We've abandoned those that have always been there for us.
Yeah.
Uh,
The
it's just not, I mean, it's just not true. Like it's just not true. In order to go to the places that we want to go, we typically have to give things or people up. Relationships change. The dynamics of relationships change. We change. And so, man, I love the fact that some of my closest childhood friends from elementary school, two of them are still some of my closest friends today. But what that relationship looks like is different. We have families, we have jobs, we have children, we have responsibilities, right? We can't go outside and play in the park or run around the neighborhood all day. They have very specific directions they're trying to go with their life. I have very specific directions I'm trying to go with my life. And we're not 10 years old anymore.
It'd be kind of strange to see a bunch of grown men running in the park.
But a lot of people hold on to this idea. Well,
Yeah,
this has been my homie forever, right? This has been my guy forever.
yeah,
Well, my guy today is not doing the same things that I'm doing. So
yeah,
I can love him. I can love him and do love him, but I have to love him differently. He has to love me differently.
yeah, yeah. And it's very hard. I mean, as you said, like especially with family. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like the airplane analogy, right? You gotta put your mask on first, figure out your stuff, so you can be a better father, husband, leader, anything, right? That any role that you fill. And yeah, so you brought up something good. Like we may be the reason why that other people take a break from us. And as I'm kind of stripping away and doing all these things, right? Those are things that I reflect on, and I wish. I don't want to say I wish. Yeah, I wish I would have been a like. I say this to an extent with the caveat that I'm giving myself grace in it, but I also understand that I probably wasn't always leading people in the right direction in the military. Because we worked hard and we played hard.
Yeah.
So I just kind of perpetuated that culture. Probably it's too much as a leader. That probably wasn't the best way, and uh, unfortunately, um,
Yeah,
yeah, and
looking back, I understand looking back, but I would also challenge you, brother, that when we look back that way, if we do so with the intent to reflect and lead differently now, that's one thing. But if we look back in that way and we ignore all of the positive things we did for our men and women, all the all the beautiful moments we had because of our service with those men and women, I think we do ourselves a disservice. And so if you're looking back on leadership for the purposes of reflection and I'm going to do it differently now, that's one thing. But if you look back and don't give yourself grace and understanding for where you were as a human being, where you were then, we're going back 7 years, we're going back 10 years, right? If you don't give yourself grace for, well, I was a different dude then.
yeah,
I led the way that I thought was best then. I would not lead the same way now in certain areas. Well, that's perfectly normal, man. You're not the same dude.
exactly. And
Think
so
about think about when you just got out of boot camp, right? Like think about when you just got out of boot camp. You graduate down in Lackland Air Force Base, you get your first duty assignment, right? I don't hear you saying, "Man, if I could go back as an E1 or E2 or E3, man, I would have done everything differently." It's only from the lens of leadership that we go, I don't know that I set the best example.
yeah,
Well,
it's
that
fair.
might be true. That might be true, but how many great examples did you set? How many men and women talked to you the day you retired and wrapped their arms around you and told you how much they loved you and appreciated you and valued you? Again, it goes all the way back to what we talked about at the beginning of the conversation. This is true. This is also true. And isn't that the whole point of our journey and our growth? Why would guys like you and I spend hours every week thinking about how we can grow and get better as husbands, as men, as leaders, if we thought all along everything we did since the day we were born was perfect?
Yeah, yeah,
That's not the human experience, man, right?
yeah,
Uh it's not the human experience. And when we stay stuck in what was or what wasn't, it's really difficult to move forward with today.
That's true. So anybody listening, give yourself some grace. Uh, like how are we shifting and learning from the things we even did yesterday, right? Or an hour
Yeah,
ago. It's like, all right, that
yeah,
sucks.
that's right.
How are we going to shift into not do
we're
that
we're, we're
again?
different people. We're in different places in our lives, right? The community that I learned the most from around this idea of like, let me just do the best I can to be a really good human being right now. The strongest community that I've ever been around that has taught me these lessons is the recovery community. Those that are in active and committed recovery from addiction. What is a mantra that you'll hear often? Just do the next right thing.
Hmm. I
And
guess,
what a beautifully simple way to navigate this journey.
yeah.
Very hard, but man, what a powerfully beautiful way. And those that I know well that are in recovery, and we all know anybody listening, we all know folks out there, right? What will they tell you? They'll never ever be able to make amends for all of the pain, destruction. They'll never be able to make amends for all that they did, but they do their best today to do right by people today, to do the next right thing today. I mean, what a beautifully powerful example of how to go through life.
You were saying, and I was reminded of the Serenity Prayer. I was looking for my coins.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's so I use that as a segue, and um, how has I'm curious about the journey of, well, two things. I mean, they're kind of one and the same. You're curious. I'm curious about the journey of your faith, and like, have has there been like things that are like unexplainable that brought you to this? I mean, to this understanding of belief and faith.
Hmm. Well, as you know, man, and in the vein of transparency, I am very much, I think we all are. I am very much a work in progress when it comes to um, my faith. I, like a lot of people in my generation and my age, I was raised in an old school Irish Catholic family, right?
Hmm.
Father, 100% Irish, mother, 100% Polish, both families uh, devoutly religious, right? And so my exposure to the church was, uh, it wasn't optional for me, right?
Yeah.
And I think as we go through our journey through life, like my early journey was every Sunday we are going to go to mass, and then every Sunday we're going to sit as a family and have a meal together, and that will be the structure of our family, right? Baptism, first communion, confirmation. Um, there's no world where I could have ever gotten married anywhere other than a Catholic church. Um, so my formation into my faith was like many other kids. I was never the guy that was like, holy shit, this is everything for me, right? This is everything. I went every Sunday because my parents told me I had to go, but never making any real connection between my walk through life and walking through life in a way that we do our best in the image and likeness of God, right? So that was my early exposure. Then uh, you go through college and early adulthood, and my faith was not at all present in my life. It wasn't. Um, I was well versed because of my upbringing, but it wasn't a pillar for me, right? And then you start to get older and you get married and you have kids and you are tested and you find yourself, at least I did, you find yourself going, in the ways that we all do, whether we are spiritual people or not, we go, good Lord or God, please help me. Please help me. Well, if you continue to do that over and over again, it's probably a good indication that you have some sort of belief that is beyond yourself, right? Um, as we sit here today, it is a critically important part of my life, but one that I need to be way more intentional in crafting my life around. Um, Starting my day with prayer and reflection is important. What I need to do a way better job of is asking myself the questions throughout the day. Um, what would Jesus do? And I'll end with just sharing a quick story. One of our guys at UHP spent his whole career in Ranger Regiment. Uh, in my mind, the absolute and real definition of a warrior, right? We use that word all the time, and I think we overuse it, and it minimizes the power in the word. I certainly in no way would consider myself a warrior. Like it's never a word I would use to describe myself. But this dude, for sure. And we were saying he's very, very uh, uh, religious guy. And we were sitting talking one day and talking about our faith. And he was schooling me a little bit on the Bible and I'm a novice, a Bible, not like man, I'm a novice. And he's like, Johnny, it's the most simple yet powerful way to live your life. And he picked up the Bible and he said, all the answers are right here, dude. They're all right here. When you are faced with your toughest questions of the day or the toughest questions of your life, the answers are right here. That's what I need to do a better job of is understanding that I don't have to come up with the answers. They're there. Um, so I would say, sort of to pull it all together, my faith journey is ongoing. It is ongoing. Where I find the most peace and the most power, honestly, comes in shared prayer, and I think you know that. But ongoing for me, man.
No, and I appreciate you sharing that and being honest. And it is for me too. And I grew up in a similar way. Wasn't Catholic. Was grew, and a lot of people are surprised when I say that. I'm like, you freaking stereotyping sons of no. But no, it was the same thing. Like it was, and I do feel it was from the generation before them, right? Like they learned it, just kind of like adopted idea and adopted beliefs, and they weren't allowed to question. And whenever we questioned or I questioned, it was the same thing. Like I
That's
was
right.
accused of being the devil and all kinds of stuff, and I was like, whoa, even in Bible school. But either way, like I got away from it for a while, and then as I said earlier, right, when I was in a recovery or an inpatient, and we did the Serenity Prayer, right, and then part of the 12-step program is to accept the power greater than yourself. And I was like, I don't know where I'm at with that, and I yes, I did have some type of core belief system, which is ironic because for a long time really I got really into like, and it's because I had experiences when I was growing up as a kid, right? And I've had like some wild supernatural experiences as a kid, right? In my house, we hear stuff moving, and so I was always fascinated with the. I was willing to accept. I'll just say this: I was willing to accept one side of the spiritual realm, if you will, but I was conveniently not willing to accept the other side, which is strange, right? Because you can't have
Actually, not strange, very normal, especially at that time in our life. We're always going to accept the good shit.
yeah.
You
What
know what I mean?
yeah, and so I got really fascinated. I got into like ghost adventures and all this stuff, and we're on Halloween too, so I guess it's fitting. But with all that, right, I got into all that stuff, um and I grew up with a split belief system. I grew up with the only way I can explain it, whether it be like Mayan, Azteca, or Native American practices and cleansings or limpias and stuff like that. You're in Massachusetts, so I'm sure you see the bodegas everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and there's good and bad to that as well. And anytime we ever did that, like my mom would do it at the house, it was always for protection. It was never
Mm.
to, at least from what I understand, what I
Yeah,
see.
a lot of praying to saints and stuff for protection and
Yeah,
yeah.
well, ironic, like it's crazy. I don't want to keep using the word ironically, but she would pray to Jesus, but do these things, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I kind of grew up with that, and that seemed more real to me. So and then I guess conveniently, right? I gravitated more towards that, and then it's still relevant within the culture here, as well as some of my family members, but it's interesting because the times there's been times where throughout my life I've woken up, and this was when I was stationed in Florida, overseas some places, and different parts of my life, but I felt a presence in the room, and it wasn't a good presence,
Mhm.
and it was the only times I felt like primal fear, where I know something's there and there's nothing I could do. I feel it. I see, like I don't see it, but I feel it. I know it's there. I know where it is in the room, and it's a fear. That's why I asked, like, if there's it's a fear that I can't explain. But the only thing that ever took it away was prayer, and yeah, and it was just the best I knew how to pray. It was even hard to pray. The words wouldn't come to my mind, and prayer is a skill too, right?
Yeah,
And
well,
that's what I
the
think.
powerful piece of that whole story, though, is that of all of the things that you could have done, right? Like
Yeah,
get out of the room, tell somebody, scream for help, whatever.
yeah,
What you chose to do was pray.
yeah, and
That's the powerful piece, I think.
And even then, I didn't have the wisdom to understand. Like, you don't need all these other things to. It's that connection with God, right? And then fast forward, right? I still didn't learn my lesson, right? I went through everything I went through, um, and I guess I could say that, or it's also it was preparing me for where I'm at now,
I
right?
was about to say our faith would tell us you had to learn all of those lessons to be where you are today, and you'll continue to learn them, right?
Yeah, and I find myself kind of going more down the path of like an apologetic, Christian apologetic. And it's been a long process to get to this point because I've and I continue to like use uh I went down different rabbit holes to understand God, right? And that's one of the reasons for this podcast. It's to talk about the things that we don't understand and try to throw these data points on a wall big enough, and it would paint the picture. Probably a poor job, but at least from my understanding of what God is, right? The universe, God, and like that presence, that energy, right? Um, and that's lately been reading the Bible, right? And yes, to your friend's point, um, the answers are all there. And when I heard that, I heard it from what I would heard, how I would have heard it from myself like 15 years ago, right? Because it's like you, or at least I, be like BS, right? Because it wasn't convenient. It wasn't fitting my worldview, the way I was living.
That's right. That's
And
right.
on top of that, like it can't be that simple. But there is a lot of wisdom in the book,
But
right?
well, simple and easy are not the same thing.
Well, What did I say? Simple or
No,
easy?
no, you're not
Uh,
wrong.
yeah.
I believe it is that simple. The action is not always that easy,
Oh
right?
no, heck no. And just okay, let's just focus on faith and belief, right? Those two words. Those
Hmm.
two words are are loaded words for a lot of people because of this type of upbringings that we both had. And I'm pretty
Sure.
sure a lot of people can attest to that. And then there's these self-righteous people that practice this faith that are like, it's like they don't even read the Bible and they just take it upon themselves to condemn everyone. And it steers a lot of people away from it. But yes, so to have faith in something you cannot see, taste, smell, or feel, or I think you can feel it if you're open enough and your heart is lined up. If you're dialed into that frequency, you can feel, and that's how I've kind of come to understand it. Like seeing is not believing because our eyes are only geared to take in certain spectrums of light.
Well, and
So,
then the perspective we create based off of what we see is different as well. If you and I were looking at, let's just take a picture, right?
mhm,
If we both looking at the exact same picture, and each of us independently were asked to describe it, there would be some similarities. Obviously, we're looking at the same picture, but there'd be a lot of differences as well.
yeah,
That perspective is shaped by so many different things that we've talked about through this entire call. Our origin story, our upbringing, our religious background, our experience, our traumas, our triumphs, right? So the exact same picture, literally, and we were asked independently to describe it. There would be some similarities,
mhm,
but there would also be some differences. And I think when you talk about religion and faith, I like to keep it for me, especially given the amount of people I work with, all come from different religious backgrounds. And truthfully, I don't believe that I'm in a position to judge anyone. What I do love, though, is hearing different perspectives from people because if it is working for you, then who am I to tell you that it's not right?
yeah,
I think as a society and down to the micro level, the individual level, we get into the weeds far too much, right? You and I have been on calls with Catholics, other forms of Christianity, Muslims, Buddhists, Jewish men and women, all different walks of life, all different religious beliefs. None of us ever talk about, well, your belief system is wrong and mine is right, and this is why. That's what I think we're missing societally is when I talk to another human being, if the topic of religion comes up and how they are walking in their faith works for them, who am I to tell them that they're wrong?
yeah,
Some of the most spiritual people I know, some of the most spiritual people that I know in my life, who are literally walking as close as you probably could in the way of our God, have never stepped foot in a church. Never. Never stepped foot in a church, never picked up a Bible, but man, do they do the next right thing. So, yes, for you and I, uh, prayer is important. For me lately, reading scripture is important. Um, Praying with those that I trust and love is important. Attending mass is important. But if it's not for some people and they're working really hard to be good human beings, isn't that indicative of somebody with strong faith?
yeah. It is, and I'm not. I agree with a lot of what you said, but for the times and for each person, I don't feel that any one person is can bring somebody to God, right? Or their understanding of God. But it's God Himself working through people to bring His presence to them.
Agreed.
And for me, I don't. try to convince anyone. Um, at the end of the day, because I don't want to be that person that I turned away. And this has been a long journey for me, and it continues to be a long journey. And I continue to have questions. I continue to, if I'm being honest, like doubt, and then I have to go do the research. And I've used different methodologies to understand, to try to understand quantum physics, and try to understand quantum entanglement, and try to understand string
Not
theory.
me.
Yeah, and but at the end of the day, it's like it all points to something that is an intelligent design. Even to books that disprove Darwin at the very basic of his research, they pull it apart. And but either way, my point is like I continue to search and I continue to understand. I continue to pull back the layers because that's just who I am at
Yeah.
my core.
Well,
Um,
you're discovering, man, and you're interested in the discovery and you want to learn more, right?
yeah,
And that's a beautiful thing. And then we have some people that for them it is what it is, and they dig into it for the purposes of this part of the discussion. For them, their faith is what it is for them, and maybe it's morning prayer, maybe it's church once a week, maybe it's a Bible group, maybe it's none of those things. But that's sort of the point. Like I, like you, first of all, I don't believe I'm well versed enough or in a position to profess what faith and religion should mean for anybody, right? I don't I don't come to the conversation with that level of confidence or conviction. I just know what it does for me. And I know that in that way I'm very selfish, and I'm perfectly okay with being selfish in that way. Uh Others, maybe more well versed, maybe more well read, maybe more uh, rooted only in their faith as their guide for every decision that they make in their life. Uh, they maybe stand in a better position to have conversations that are more specific and driven around their faith. What I love about my journey through faith is that I get to have open discussions with dudes like you and others where I can learn, right?
yeah.
One of my best friends in the world, a brother to me, a mentor, just a close friend, is a Jewish guy. Uh, I've learned so much from him, so much from him, um,
That's the next one
and
I want to get into is the Torah.
yeah, and
It's
so
just
just being open to the faith journeys of other people's, I think it can bring us closer to our own while respecting that, man, other people are walking through this life in a different way than I am. But if it is working for them, I mean, what more do I want for people? Like that's the business that we're in, man. We're in the business of trying to help people.
yeah, and I guess to bring it all in, it's the growth mindset, faith mindset, belief mindset. It's not saying the things, but it's embodying the things that
That's
you
right.
are practicing. And within that, it will draw people if they are ready to, like if they ask me like, hey man, what's your secret? What is your, and it's not going around and like forcing people to this ideology or belief system, religion aside. I'm talking about just whatever you believe in, whatever your values are, walk in that. And if it resonates with somebody else, then you could share it with them with, as opposed to forcing any type of growth mindset, belief mindset, whatever it is your thing is that resonates with somebody else. It's like being that light, being that leader, being that person that is available and it has the capacity um to share what it is that the person is going to you for. And I think at the basis of it all, that's what it's about. It's 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 not going around and like, you know, beating people up with whatever idea you have. It's just embodying it and walking in it and doing as much as you can to learn about whatever it is that you claim to be and live it.
Or do your best to live it.
Do your best to live it. Yeah, I'm not saying to be perfect or nothing.
Yeah, that's
Um,
part of the problem with the church in general, right? Is that for some people's upbringing and their story, right? There's so much shame attached to it because um, we can count to so many different examples, but uh, if you do things that are, in my opinion, a very normal and natural part of the human journey, right? Well, now they're defined as sins. And if you're raised in a family where those sins send you to hell, um, it can significantly skew your view on the power, the blessings, the joy that come from our faith, and it can make that journey very difficult for people. And I think the more we can get away from the shame attached to being flawed, being beautifully flawed, being human. And the more we can make it about conversations like you and I are having, where, hey, the answers are all there. Let's do our best to try to find them. If we say it's important to us, then I think the more people feel welcome to explore and be curious, and not feel so judged or shamed because of what they know or don't know, or because of what they've done or haven't done.
yeah,
And that took some undoing for me too, because when you're raised in a certain environment where um, religion is such a critically important part of the journey, but you're never told why,
hmm,
and you're never told what all this means for me as a young man, and what it will mean for me as a man and a father and a provider and a protector. When you're just told to go, and if you don't go, bad things will happen. Where you're told to do this, and if you don't do this, bad things will happen. I think for me, and I can only speak for my own journey, but I know for me, that's what took me away from the church for a while. Uh, and the reasons that I've gotten back into the faith and back into the journey have been more out of curiosity and more out of willingness to step into it when I have agency over my own choice, and I'm not told that you have to do this or else, or if you don't do this or else. I'm doing it now because it feels right for me.
yeah, and
Does that make sense?
no, it makes perfect sense. And by no means am I trying to convince anyone of
No,
anything,
no,
but
I not at all.
yeah, but not but. I mean, it's true for you on in your journey, right? And it's true for me where my journey. And I guess the biggest thing is like is to ignite the curiosity because I think that's the question that we should all, I don't want to say we should, but if there's any question to consider and to, I don't want to say disprove, but truly search for in your own way and asking questions. And we live in the information age, right? And too much information could be bad. But if you can curate the type of information and use like sources like as YouTube and really do the digging for yourself and, uh, because that is a question, right? If we do have a creator, like that's like one of the biggest questions that should, I don't say should, I keep saying should, that I would be curious that most of us should be, God, I keep
Don't
saying
don't worry
should.
about don't worry about the
Yeah,
language.
that we
Live
should be
it.
looking for because that's a huge question. And that it's the origination of everything, right? And there's several paths that you can lead down, but from my research, and I continue to search, and that's where faith comes in, because at some point there, to understand a concept like a creator or a source or an energy or what have you, I know for a fact there's good and evil. I've I feel like I've been in the presence of evil and I've been in the presence of good.
Yeah, you've experienced both.
And at the very basis of it all, those energies, whether you can see them or not, they do, in my life experience, do exist. So having said that, and trust me, you can I've done a lot of not so great things in my past, and I don't walk 100% in the way that the Bible says you should walk, right? I struggle every day. Struggle with many different things, uh, and it's all at the very basis of it all. And the reason I bring up this subject is because it is an important pillar to, when everyone, when you're alone and there's nothing or no one around you, it's an important reminder and tool that that's when it's important to lean on something other than yourself
Yeah, well
and
said.
ask for that guidance, that intuition, that presence, that and it's that vibration, that intent, that focus, that genuine ask, and you'd be amazed what happens within time if you're able to do that and work it. Because I don't know, I feel like that's why we are in the society we are now, is because we have lost that connection with something bigger than ourselves. We don't see the stars like we used to. We're not in awe anymore because we're captured by comfort, and we don't, most of us don't leave our houses. We're
Mm.
infatuated with, the who's who and whatever celebrities on TV or whatever player drama is going on, etc., and so forth and so on. And that's what's brought me back to the idea of God, is getting out in nature. And
Yeah, it's a beautiful gift you've given yourself. I love what you said a couple minutes ago too, is that we're not in awe anymore. When awe-inspiring things are happening all around us, but everything that we think we need is right at our fingertips. And so we don't go out and find those wow moments. We don't search for that awe, but it's there.
yeah,
It's there, but it's everywhere. You and I have seen it in our own community. I'm blessed to be able to do the work I do because I get a chance to see it and feel it almost every day. Um, but you said it beautifully, that very few of us are in awe anymore, and that's because we're not challenged oftentimes to go out and find it or create it.
right.
Um, and so that's really well said, man. And it just makes me think, as we get towards the tail end of this, like, man, a huge hope I would have for the people listening, and one that you definitely just instilled in me is like, go out and find that awe or go out and create it.
Yep.
Uh, because you're right. It's it's missing from so many of our lives. Um, so that's a really profound takeaway for me, for sure.
Yeah, and that's my hope. I'm not trying to sell you nothing, but it is important for the times that you, and I didn't have it honestly. Maybe I did and wasn't even aware of it. Um, and I do feel something supernatural happen. I don't know what other word to use, but something other that I can't understand. Uh, when I attempted to take my life, and I know we're wrapping this up. When I passed out in the car, because I turned the car on in the garage and like I was drunk and I impulse thing, but something, whether it was my mom or my mom had passed at the time, just shortly before that, something woke me up and like took over my body, turned off the car. It's like, and I just went inside and passed out on the couch. But it wasn't me.
Mm.
Um, and I've had other things happen since then, but there's definitely something. And I started to ask the question, and as soon as I started to put myself back in nature, um, it made me curious, and it was just learning to do something for myself, and that was buying a bike and getting out, and then looking at the trees and the green, and then I was like, hey, why am I still on SSRIs? Why am I still on that? Where am I? What baseline am I? And I started getting plugged into communities and stuff, and people outdoors that were doing the same thing and were in a better place. Started changing my circles, so forth and so on. I guess my point is, and well, I'll end it, or with this thought is, since go out and take a trip, national park, something, try to get away from people and find that all, and just continue to search, and then start asking your whatever questions you have that you weren't able to ask as a kid, or like I don't think there's any wrong question. And do your own search and use your own curiosity and to try to answer that question for yourself. Um, and yeah, and just try to seek that all, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful way to end too, man. Go out and find that awe, or find other people, places, and things where you guys can go out and create it together. Dude, this was awesome. Thank you so much for allowing me the time and space, and I have really, really enjoyed catching up with you and digging into concepts that we've talked about before, but have never had a chance to really dig into at this level. So, so grateful, man.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on and taking the time and being open and honest with this conversation. I know some of these things are not comfortable to talk about because we perhaps haven't been asked the questions, especially like, I don't want to say live, but being recorded. I can see the wheels turning, and same with me. But yeah, I just appreciate you being genuine and being the person you are and doing the things that you're doing for our community. More
Thank you,
so
brother.
and bigger than that for our humanity in general. There's not the light that you're kind of the torch that you're walking with is waking people up to the idea of themselves and their own healing and the control that they have. And I appreciate it, and we appreciate it. But
Thank you for that, brother. And we gotta make sure that we set aside some time to do this again. This was great, man. And certainly provided me with lots to reflect on as well. I've had a chance to do lots of podcasts over the years, lots. This one was super cool. I got to do it with you, somebody I love, care about as a brother. Um, but I just love the realness of it and the conversation. And it's just a reminder that we're all searching for answers, man, and getting up every day and working towards finding those answers uh, is a lot better and more productive than the alternative. Because two things happen, right? We either choose or life chooses for us. And to be in a position where we are choosing, we are consciously choosing and not judging whether or not the choices are going to be right or wrong. We're just doing our best.
right.
And being able to talk about that from a lot of different lenses is really cool. So, this was an awesome way to start the day. I hope your folks get something out of it and can't wait to do it again, man.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And yeah, thank you again. But thanks, folks, for listening. I appreciate you guys joining us, and I recommend that you take these episodes. I know they're long, but in bite size, if you can. That's how I do longer episodes. of any podcast I'm listening to. I'm driving out of town somewhere or on the way to wherever, and I listen to like 30 minutes of it on my way to wherever, and then I'll take out, begin again. So that's just a tip. I hope you, I'm sure you'll get something from this podcast. And if you feel that any somebody else can benefit from it, or please share it with family, friends, or what have you. Please support the podcast either by liking and subscribing, or following on Spotify, Apple, wherever. It's streaming on all platforms. Um, yeah, and I'm a one-man show here, so I do everything. So just thank you for your patience. I know I take some gaps sometimes, but in that time, I'm still processing and trying to find guests like Johnny here, and having some real conversations and really peeling back the layers of our existence and the human experience. So thank you, and I appreciate you. So.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. That was great.